Keir Starmer's leadership is desperately weakened as MPs put him on trial in the Commons for his handling of Peter Mandelson's appointment.
We get the inside track on the panic gripping number 10.
Starmer's personal poll ratings have just dropped off a cliff. I think it's the biggest drop ever in personal approval ratings from a Prime Minister a year and a bit in. And the question that a lot of Labour MPs are starting to ask is Keir Starmer the man who can lead us through and into the next election with success? And particularly, I think where it's becoming so barbed is the question, are we accidentally going to hand the country over to reform? That makes it a lot more barbed, that leadership question. So no, he's not about to be ousted today, but you are seeing these discussions, and over the 6-9 months it's going to play out a lot, and you can't see what is imminently going to improve for Starmer.
Tim, the week isn't getting any easier for Keir Starmer. It's all kicking off in the Commons. We've got righties attacking him over the appointment of Peter Mandelson. We've got lefties attacking him over the appointment of Peter Mandelson. Although, crucially, no one appears to have put their head above the parapet on the Labour benches and called for him to actually resign over this. So as he prepares to meet Trump, landing in Blighty any minute now, maybe it's not been a bad day after all. I'm just still worried about his career right now. I don't know about you.
In order to make some political spectacle out of Keir Starmer's troubles, the Conservatives decided to call for a debate, which is called an SO24, which, when Labour was in opposition, it did all the time.
Yes.
And it's kind of pointless, but it's an opportunity for MPs to stand up and make devastating speeches, and importantly, to invite members who are on the government benches to stand up and make speeches too. So here was an opportunity for everyone to rake over the coals of Mandelson, lay out all the evidence, and see if any Labour people had the balls to say Keir Starmer needs to go.
Turns out not many did.
Not many did.
There's barely anyone on the Labour benches.
First up, the man who is responsible for bringing the motion, David Davis.
Firstly, was Peter Mandelson ever an appropriate character to appoint as our ambassador? No. We'll get to that later. Secondly, what was the procedure for vetting? Was it properly followed, and why has it gone so horribly wrong? Thirdly, what's happened in the last couple of weeks to lead to the demise of the former ambassador? Who made the critical decisions and why? And fourthly, what do we do now? How do we make this government tell the House and the nation the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Which in itself would be a novelty for Lord Mandelson.
Keen to brush off the rejection she suffered from her own former Conservative colleague, Danny Kruger.
And now also Maria Caulfield.
Who?
Former Tory MP, who also worked as a nurse during COVID.
That's right. Apparently her husband defected before her, by the way, so she's now in the reform camp. Right. Trying to recover from mass defections, Defection Watch, Kemi Badenoch thought she'd hammer home her advantage that she gained at PMQs last week in calling for Mandelson's scalp and having it delivered on a plate the next day with her own intervention in this debate.
There are many questions I will also ask today, Mr. Speaker, but the Prime Minister needs to do three things. The Prime Minister needs to come clean about what he knew and when he knew it. Yes. Not send his junior ministers to cover for him. The Prime Minister needs to publish the Mandelson-Epstein files in full. The Prime Minister needs to take responsibility for the appointment of Lord Mandelson as ambassador to Washington. But the Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, is not here because he is hiding from Parliament, hiding from questions. And I know that he is a busy man, but confidence in him and in his government rests on him being able to account for what happened. And so far, no one is taking any responsibility.
The Labour benches were very sparse. That's not a surprise. The best way to handle this kind of debate is just to avoid it, and then it looks like an opposition talking shop. But there were some left-wing critics of Keir Starmer who came out to speak, including Jeremy Corbyn.
Oh, love him.
Whose party we have been assured will have a name by October.
Your party. It's not your party,
or
your
Red
party.
October, as we are now calling it. Here's Jeremy Corbyn speaking.
prior to the appointment of Lord Mandelson, there was obviously not sufficient due diligence done. And on the day before he was dismissed, apparently there were a lot of emails available to the Prime Minister which he either wasn't given or didn't read. And so we find this odd situation where the British ambassador to the USA has to be dismissed in full glare of international publicity because of what his behaviour had been in the past, which was apparently very well known to a very large number of people who should not have supported his appointment in the first place.
And Tim, your favourite Labour MP, no longer in the deputy leadership
Down
race.
but not out.
Down but not out. Your TV wife, Emily Thornberry, she put in her pennyworth. And it's worth pointing out that she is the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. And obviously that was closely aligned with the decision behind Mandelson becoming the UK's ambassador to the US in the first place.
My committee first asked for the opportunity to question Lord Mandelson at the end of last year, when rumours first surfaced of his appointment as ambassador to the United States. And we continued to ask after his appointment was confirmed. Indeed, the Minister may remember our exchange on the 14th of January in this chamber, when I asked him to allow Lord Mandelson the time to come before my committee before he leaves for the United States, to allow my colleagues to hear directly why the Prime Minister has appointed him. These requests were made more often and privately after that and in the 8 months since, and they have been turned down. I think the point is this, is that if Lord Mandelson had appeared before the committee, he would have faced a range of questions which would have highlighted issues that needed to be considered properly and couldn't, in the rush to appoint him, perhaps have been overlooked in the way that it would seem to have been.
Speaking of the deputy leadership race, have you seen the latest polling? My girl Bridget has fallen well behind of Lucy Powell,
Yes.
who is a whole 17 points ahead, apparently.
Yes, and I'm moving from thinking that the race is a total stitch-up by Number 10 to have two pro-Starmer candidates running to thinking, actually, Lucy Powell is a more oppositional candidate than I thought.
She's a Burnham beard.
She is, and this is precisely because the people who are most critical loyalists, let's call them, seem to be lining up behind Lucy Powell, and following them are the members. And that could make the race a lot more interesting than we expected.
We're going to speak in a moment to Ben Riley-Smith to outline just how much trouble Starmer really is in, and also dissect his relationship with his chief aide, Morgan McSweeney, who, of course, is getting a lot of the blame for the Mandelson farrago. But before that, can we just talk about Paul Ovenden?
Yes.
Now, not to be confused with the Overton window we spoke about yesterday.
Yes.
Although, can I just, sometimes our readers are very, very good. Can I just quote Mart Ralph, who writes, "The Overton window is the range of subjects and arguments politically acceptable to the mainstream population at a given time. So from now on, could the Ovenden window be the term used for the latest scandal-ridden apparatchik or minister in the Labour ranks to be defenestrated?" Now, we say that because Paul Ovenden was a big Labour name. He was behind most of Keir Starmer's speeches.
Yes.
He has been forced to resign because it's been discovered that 8 years ago he played a game of shag, marry, kill involving Diane Abbott. Now, sorry, I'm laughing at this because the idea...
Which one was Diane Abbott?
I'm
just
not
to be
sure,
clear.
and I think if we speculate, we too could be forced to resign.
Right, okay.
Since
Let's
when...
close the curtains
Can
on
I
that,
just ask...
that Ovenden window.
Can close that Ovenden window immediately. In what world has playing a game of shag, marry, kill for a laugh been a resignation offence?
Only the world of politics. And this is why so many people won't go into it, because heavens, can you imagine if anyone should happen to get access to our WhatsApps?
Oh, no.
We wouldn't last 5 minutes. I think I might actually be guillotined if that happened. So it's partly that, but it's also that a group of people within the Labour Party are taking a revenge.
Yes.
And this is the thing about Westminster is when people can smell blood in the water around a leader, then they start to take chunks of flesh off you. He lost Angela Rayner, he lost Peter Mandelson, and now he's lost this man whose name... I mean, Ovenden Window just sounds like a Robert Ludlum novel. I always think that about Overton Windows. There's something quite unreal about these people. But the loss of him it's not a question of did he deserve it. It's a question of how will this hurt Keir Starmer right now.
Well, it has.
And just to say, remember, Diane Abbott, who's at the centre of this, and it seems very unpleasant things were said about Diane, and I feel very protective of poor old Diane. Keir Starmer wanted her out of he wanted her out as a Labour MP at the last election. And it was only because she kicked up a big fuss and everyone said, you can't get rid of Diane, like she's a beloved old retainer.
No.
It's only because of that she hung around. So these people like Emily Thornberry speaking in that event, this is someone else who was dropped for preferment. These are people who are seeking revenge.
I know, but it does bring out the absolute humorlessness of the left. Nadia Whitcomb.
It does.
Oh, God love her.
Yes.
She thinks this is the most disgusting thing she's ever heard. I mean,
yes.
Has she ever watched an episode of The Day to Day?
Yes.
Or
The Thick
indeed
of It, yeah.
The Thick of It. Wake
Yeah.
up, come on,
Yeah,
for goodness
yeah.
sake.
But the central charge is that the Number 10 operation is hypocritical, that it pretends to be feminist. But
Yes.
at the heart of it is a butch, macho culture of people like Morgan McSweeney, a red-haired
Yes.
man.
How dare him, a ginger.
And that Starmer has always had a problem with women, and that's why women tend to lose their job rather than men.
The other reason why this comes back to bite Starmer as well, by the way, is he's quite happy for Peter Mandelson to be appointed as ambassador to Washington, despite everything that was known about Epstein. And now we're getting into the weeds of what he knew and what he didn't know. Let's be honest, we can both agree he knew enough.
Yeah.
The appointment in the first place was controversial. He defends him on the Wednesday. He still defends him when he knows everything he knows. But oh no, if you've played a game of shag, marry or kill, I'm sorry, but it's curtains within minutes for you. It's absolutely
Once again,
preposterous.
his judgment is being questioned, and I don't think that can be separated from the question of how effective he is as a policymaker. Because while all this was going on in Parliament, what really mattered today was the news that flights going to France to return asylum seekers in the much heralded one-in, one-out policy contained no asylum seekers.
There are more people.
So it's likely to end up being a none out, one in
And
policy.
there's more people going in and out of Downing Street right now than there is in the France and England
And
deal.
I have to ask of the human rights lawyers and the charities who are behind this obstructionism, I can understand it in relation to Rwanda because that government was regarded by the UK as dodgy. So there's an argument for saying you're deporting people to an unsafe place. But France, if you can't deport someone to France, then the implication is that you must say yes to everyone.
Yes.
Anyone who can get here should stay here.
Yeah.
We can now infer that that is the position of the human rights lobby and charities because that's what they've pulled off here.
Well, let's find out whether both Keir Starmer and indeed his right-hand man, Morgan McSweeney, can stay in Number 10. Ben Riley-Smith joins us fresh from the newsroom. Tim and I have been discussing all of the calamities that Keir Starmer's had to deal with. How much trouble do you really think he's in?
Well, he's not in a great place politically, but I think two things can be true. One is he is not about to be ousted as Labour leader. I think you've got to step back. Not a single one of the 400 plus Labour MPs is on the record telling him to go. When you look at the rivals who could try and take his place, Andy Burnham would need a by-election to become an MP to become Labour leader. There is no imminent prospects of by-election. Even if there are whispers of some who'd have to beat reform, so that's a few steps away. Angela Rayner was often touted as the person who'd step up if Starmer was ousted. She is now on the outside and wounded by the tax scandal that the Telegraph revealed. Also, the mechanism in the Labour Party for getting rid of a leader is really hard. So the Tories, as we know well from the 14 years, have this secret no confidence letter. Back in the day, you just needed 15% of MPs to put in a letter anonymously to trigger a vote of no confidence. Labour doesn't have the same mechanism. Officially, to challenge a leader, one person needs to come forward and needs to have signatures from 20% of Labour MPs on record. So that means 80 Labour MPs need to sign a piece of paper backing someone else. We're not near that point. But at the same time, Keir Starmer is in a really bad place politically, and some of these discussions are starting to be had behind the scenes. Right now they're hovering around 20% in the polls. They won 34% of the vote at the elections. About 1 in 3 people who voted Labour last year have gone elsewhere.
Yes.
The lead from Reform is real. It's big. About a third of the electorate consistently in polls say they're leaning that way. Starmer's personal poll ratings have just dropped off a cliff. I think it's the biggest drop ever in personal approval ratings from a Prime Minister a year and a bit in. And the question that a lot of Labour MPs are starting to ask is Keir Starmer the man who can lead us through into the next election with success. And particularly, I think where it's becoming so barbed is the question, are we accidentally going to hand the country over to reform? That makes it a lot more barbed, that leadership question. So no, he's not about to be ousted today, but you are seeing these discussions, and over the 6-9 months it's going to play out a lot, and you can't see what is imminently going to improve for Starmer.
All right then, second question. If Keir Starmer isn't ousted, will his closest aide, Morgan McSweeney, be ousted? And what impact could that have on his premiership?
Well, that is another big question that is being asked right now. It's not hard to understand why. Morgan McSweeney is very close to Peter Mandelson. He championed that appointment. We reported last week that Sue Gray, his predecessor as Starmer's chief of staff, was never planning to put Mandelson in Washington. But I don't think anybody knows, critics or allies, that it was Morgan who championed putting Mandy out in Washington. That has clearly backfired spectacularly with his having to be forced by the Prime Minister over his Jeffrey Epstein links. But that doesn't, again, immediately mean that the Prime Minister will be willing to sack Morgan. If you look back at the last half decade of Labour politics, the Starmer project, if there's one person who's as central to that success other than Keir Starmer, is Morgan McSweeney. Remember, I think one thing you've got to remember about the Prime Minister is he is not instinctively deeply steeped in politics, parliamentary politics. He only became an MP in his early 50s, so his whole career was away from Westminster being a lawyer. So he does need to rely on someone who has politics much more instinctive in their fingernails, and that's really who Morgan is. So at a lot of points in the run-up, trying to get the party in the position where they could take advantage of that spectacular Tory collapse before the election. And since victory, trying to work out how to diffuse political issues. If you look at the reshuffle a week ago, that was clearly Morgan led on some of those discussions with the Prime Minister. You could see his allies getting into key posts, Pat McFadden in Work and Pensions, Shabana Mahmood in the Home Office. So he is really absolutely central to this project. So even if he should share some of the blame about the Mandelson appointment, it's going to take a lot for the Prime Minister then to sack him.
Ben Riley-Smith, thank you very much indeed. Not everybody is happy with Danny Kruger.
No.
Sylvia Coley, a regular contributor to this Daily Tea podcast and listener. Now I get it, she says. Mr. Kruger didn't get his man, she means Robert Jenrick, in the leadership election. He is a poor loser who only gives loyalty when he is with what he believes is the winning team. Well done, Suella, who recently stated she will not defect. Also, can you just read out that bit about his Christian moral values?
He is a totally self-serving, dishonourable man, happy to kick his leader and his voters in the teeth without being a visible positive supporter at all in the past year. He is not my idea of a Christian, and I am so glad he is not my MP. She made reference there to Rob Jenrick, who, of course, recently got on a Spitfire to commemorate the Battle of Britain. When the anniversary of the moon landings come around, I presume he's going to be projected into space by a giant catapult.
Now, it was Battle of Britain Day yesterday, and he did conduct some polling which revealed that only half of people under 40
That's correct.
know what it is.
Yeah,
and as a historian and learned man, Tim Stanley,
yes,
that should worry you almost as much as it worries Robert Jenrick right now.
Yeah, it is concerning, but I don't know, it doesn't entirely surprise me. A generation will eventually be born for whom the Second World War is not of as great as historical significance. It's a sad thing, but it was inevitable. But on the subject of Danny, publicly, a lot of Tory activists and a handful of MPs have gone down Sylvia's route of saying, well, he's exposed himself. He was worried because a poll suggested that he might lose his seat. This is really just about getting ahead. And now he's allied himself with Farage. He never really was one of us. I think that's a big mistake to say that, because the truth is that he is missed from the party. He is someone who did have a future in the party. I'm sure he could have held his seat. He held it last time. The loss of Danny is something which, privately, from the Tory MPs I have spoken to in the last 24 hours, it is something that they are mourning.
Yes.
They're not so much angry about it
they're upset,
as they're really, really sad, because they know they've lost a good one. And we'll see more of him, and he will give some much-needed heft to Nigel Farage and reform.